Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the webcast, Rekindling the Flame, How Service Awards Are the Key to Keeping Love Alive at Work, sponsored by Awardco. This webcast has been pre-approved for HRCI credit. Please be sure to attend the complete webcast in order to receive your credit. You will receive an email from hr.com. Within 2 business days, it will include the certification credit information. If you have any questions during the webcast, click on Q&A in your webinar controls and type them in. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to our presenter, Bronson Dameron.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming and attending this webinar where we talk about rekindling the flame and how service awards are the key to keeping love alive at work. It is myself, Bronson, and we also have Kristen Sokol with us. She's our resident love expert and dating coach and executive coach. And so we'll get to some introductions here so you can kind of get to know us a little bit better. But this is Kristen. Kristen, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit?
Okay, sure, glad to. So I'm Kristen Sokol. I am a dating coach, but don't worry, I am not here to spice up your love life. But if that happens to happen as a byproduct of watching this webinar, then I truly apologize. But I'm here because I have information for you from the future about relationships and social connections, and I think you're going to want to know. We're going to talk about how knowing how to create better connections is really useful in the workplace. So I'm here to shed light and some understanding on improving non-romantic, not the kind of romance that you have to report to HR, workplace relationships. So relax. I'm not going to try and make you date anybody at work. I know it's probably weird and shocking to be on with a dating coach, but I won't make anybody create an online dating profile today. Bronson mentioned that I'm a certified executive coach. And that's true. I did my graduate work at the University of Texas in their executive coaching program, but I didn't follow the path of most executive coaches because my passion has always been rooted in relationships, especially helping people develop new relationships. So a lot of my work and my clients are, I have this niche of women over 35 who are wanting to get married. But the other part of my career is focused on doing corporate presentations like this one about how to improve non-romantic but important workplace relationships. So if you want to talk about dating, you're going to have to reach out to me later because that's not what we're here to do today. So everybody just relax.
Yeah, or you could throw a question in the chat about dating, and maybe we'll get to it in the Q&A, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you bet. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, my name's Bronson. I am an employee experience aficionado. I'm really passionate about it, as a lot of us are. I've had some good experiences at work, some bad experiences at some other workplaces, but I am now currently the content manager for Awardco, where I get to be part of something really amazing, where we are recognizing people and we're trying to change the way that people, the way they work, the way they enjoy their work. And I'm really excited to be presenting with you, Kristen, because I think the stuff you have to say is so applicable, both inside the workplace and outside of it. So I'm really excited about that. And also you'll see in my bio there, I am a Dungeons and Dragons enthusiast, among other things. And that's a little bit about me.
Now, Bronson, the people really want to know, are you a LARPer? Does everybody know what LARPing is?
A LARPer, yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever met one in real life.
Yeah, they're kind of like an enigma, right? A LARPer is a live action role player, for those of you who may not know. They will dress up in their characters' outfits, like from Lord of the Rings, and they'll have foam swords and stuff, and they'll go and live action role play outdoors. I am not a LARPer. I do enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, like rolling dice and stuff, but I guess you could kind of say I do a little bit of cosplay, like charity cosplay. So I dress up, I'm part of a group where I dress up as Captain America and go visit kids in hospitals and stuff like that with Disney princesses and superheroes. So a little bit of I guess, role play.
I wanted to tease you a little bit more relentlessly, but if you're going to talk about the charity work you do in children's hospitals, then I sound like a jerk. So never mind.
Yeah, that always tends to make people kind of go, oh, yeah, we can't make fun of them anymore. Yeah, but that's us. We're excited to have you here today. And we're going to talk a little bit about employee engagement first. And we hear a lot about this, but this is just really brief to kind of give us a high level overview. And then we're going to dive into the science of relationships. And Kristen's going to take us on kind of this journey, for lack of a better term, to tell us how relationships work in and outside of the workplace and how that can improve our workplace environment. But employee engagement, what is it? I mean, we hear about it all the time. At this particular conference, you probably heard it at least a handful of times. But engagement, in our research, engagement can produce 17% more productivity, 31% less turnover, 40% less absenteeism. Absenteeism, as we term it, is when an employee doesn't show up for work. They do with no excuse. They're just, whoop, they're not even there. In school, we called that, I used to call that sloughing. When you were in school, did you still call that sloughing?
Yeah, I think sloughing is a West Coast term, and I think they call it, I don't know, something else on the East Coast, but yes, definitely sloughing.
Yep. So employee engagement can help with all of those things. And as you can see, they're 100% happier employees. Now that we don't have any strong statistics to back that up except anecdotal, right? When employees are engaged, they're generally happier. You know, they feel better about things. So how can we improve employee engagement? By improving the employee experience. So we're going to talk about relationships and attachment theory. And this is where, Kristen, your expertise is going to come in just so powerfully as we talk about what is attachment theory and how does that work, you know?
So most people don't know any specifics about what attachment theory is or attachment theory in general. And that's great for me because I make a living telling people about it. So today I'm going to tell you how attachment theory works and then how it specifically applies in the workplace, because it does have a place there. So by the end of this webinar, I hope that everybody is really excited to apply what you learn about attachment theory in all the spheres of your influence in your personal life, but especially in your work sites. That's what I'm going to focus on today.
Awesome. And so as we dive into that, we want to specify that we're talking about the employer-employee relationship. We're going to say the word love a lot in this webinar. So don't get freaked out by that. Like Kristen said, we're talking about platonic love, about friendships, and most importantly, about how the relationship between the employer and the employee works and what we can learn about from attachment theory and things like that to, you know, how that works with the employer and the employee. So as we dive into this, let's think about how we engage in our personal relationships. And when you think about the people you care about in your life, how do you recognize them, or how do we celebrate those kinds of relationships? Well, there's genuine care involved. There's consistent follow-up. For example, that can mean anything from, like, if you have a coworker that you know their daughter had a baseball game, you can be like, oh, how'd that go? Or if you know that they were engaged in something or maybe worried about something, you can have that follow-up. And then remember what's important to that person and then show your love. So we're going to go over each one of these and kind of describe how we can do that better in the workplace with the science of relationships. And Kristen is our relationship scientist for sure. I mean, I dress up like Captain America, but I'm not a relationship scientist.
Well, I'm glad there's a place for me in this world because I wouldn't make a very good Wonder Woman. I'm only 5 foot tall. Okay, so let's just deconstruct love and relationships a little bit. What is the science behind this big thing? What even is love? That's such a big, the L word, such a big all-encompassing thing. So what I want you to know is that love happens and love is when we form a secure attachment to another person, or even an idea or an object, right? Like you've seen a child with their special blanket. Can everybody relate to that? If you have kids and they have a special blanket or a special stuffed animal and you lose that thing, or heaven forbid you wash it, it is hard on them because they definitely love that thing because it brings them so much security. So attachment, as we're going to describe it, or love, is the foundation of any relationship. And I can't emphasize that enough to you. Without a secure sense of attachment, there is no real relationship. So there's a whole science behind attachment, and I could talk for a whole weekend or maybe even weeks about it, but I'm going to give you a quick crash course today in attachment theory. So here comes attachment theory at you in a nutshell. Any thoughts or questions before I roll forward, Bronson?
I I don't think so. I just really liked how you said that attachment. When I think of attachment previous to working with you, I mostly thought of it in context of like people. You know, I'm attached to
Hmm.
people. But I love how you said that you can become attached to places, to smells, to all kinds of different things. Like humans are a little bit weird that
Yeah.
way. We can become attached to crazy things. But work is definitely one of those things we can either become attached to or distant from, right? We become attached to the people we work with or something like that. I just really like that
Yes.
you know, you
Yes.
emphasize
Or
that.
even certain areas in the office that you work in your
Mm,
workspaces, or certain things, we
yeah.
create this secure attachment to them, and they are meaningful to us, and that's in big part because of this attachment theory that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So love as you know it is really just a feeling of secure attachment to someone or something. We had talked about this in our prep. It's even a company's culture. We can become pretty attached, or disassociated with, if we hate it, our
Yep.
company's culture. So that is kind of a big deal. So I want to tell you about this guy, John Bowlby. He is widely thought of as the father of attachment theory. He started publishing really important work in the 40s, the 1940s and 50s. And his early work studied orphaned children after World War II. So that's a little heavy, but he got a lot of research and had some hypotheses and made some scientific discoveries there, which have become really important and really relevant to attachment theory in general. So in the case of these orphan children, they were, of course, institutionally sheltered and put in orphanages. They were fed, they were warm, they had food, but they had no familial attachments, right? They weren't getting loved or nurtured by parents, and they formed no real human-to-human attachments. And what we found, or what they found with these children, is that they failed to thrive, even though those basic needs were being met, and they died in droves, which is super sad.
Yeah.
So even though their needs were met, they didn't thrive. They failed to thrive, and they died. So what we learned from Bowlby's studies, they demonstrated that emotional starvation, or lack of attachments, is as life-threatening as physical malnutrition, right? We need those attachments as much as we need food, which they didn't really know before then. So creating real secure attachment opportunities is instinctual to humans. And when the opportunity to make them is removed, we tend to crumble, right? So attachments give humankind a survival advantage. That's why we are neurobiologically wired to be social and to connect. This has happened all the way from caveman times, all the way today into your office, right?
Mhm.
Having someone you trust to watch your back helps always.
Yeah.
So step one there. Any thoughts or questions?
I don't think so from my end, but I really, I think about attachment at the workplace can sometimes be like, well, I don't want to be attached to my workplace. And in a lot of cases that's okay. You don't need to be super attached to your workplace. But I'm excited to kind of see how these three attachment theories, or this theory of attachment and the different styles of attachment, can relate to relationships at work, or generally just how you feel. And I think we've all been at these certain points. And so it's really cool to see how this relates to just the daily work life, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you'll allow me to go a little deeper, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the three styles. And just so everybody knows, I'm grossly oversimplifying for the sake of time. But as part of Bowlby's work, we know that there are two main attachment styles. There's secure and insecure. And under that insecure umbrella, we have two main types. And those attachment types are anxious and avoidant. And so we either are going to be secure, we're going to be anxious, or we're going to be avoidant in our attachment styles. And the way we develop our attachment styles has a lot to do with our family of origin. So the way you were raised, the way your parents raised you, the kind of love they gave you or didn't give you. It has everything to do with the way that you lean. And it should be noted that, you know, we're going to fall into one of these three categories, but it isn't a black or white thing. This is more like a quadrant. So it's sort of a scale of gray of where we're at. And our attachment style does tend to change based on the circumstances and the attachment styles of the people we are relating to. So yeah, I hope that's clear.
Yeah.
So when things are going well, when the love is totally reciprocal, it's because there's a secure attachment felt between both parties. And that's what we're shooting for. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. So when things are not going as well, we consider the attachment between the two individuals to be insecure. And that's because one or both of the parties is experiencing an insecure attachment style, and they're either going to be anxious or avoidant. And we're going to talk a little bit more about each one of these. I'm going to give you a little description. And I want our participants here to see if you can gauge what kind of attachment style you possess. And it's also really interesting to think about the people who you are relating to, the people around you in your personal life or in your workspace. Feel free to think about others as you're hearing some of these attachment styles to see what they may have, what their attachment styles may be.
Yeah, and just one thing that I think adding on to that is that as we talk about these attachment styles, forming healthy and secure attachments at work has so many benefits for both parties, right? We develop friends, we can admire leaders, we establish mentors, we're more likely to stick around, people are more likely to stick around. And the comfort and security we feel from these relationships gives us an emotional boost, a performance boost. I mean, the benefits are wide ranging, and it's really cool to see that. Even as we talk about anxious attachment style, knowing if you are anxious or if someone you work with is an anxious attachment style can still help you kind of cater and help and be there for them, right?
Totally. And, you know, it's so, I'm so privileged to be able to do what I do because there's so much benefit that can come from understanding relationships and especially attachment styles, especially in the workplace. There's so much happening beneath the radar, and it's easy to just let it go and be confused or not figure it out. But you have a real advantage when you understand what's happening because it helps you with your strategy in moving forward in creating these opportunities. So, okay, I'm going to jump forward here and we're going to talk about an anxious attachment style. So if you are or you know someone who is presenting with this anxious attachment style, relationships are going to consume a large part of their emotional energy, right? They're always worried about what other people are thinking or how they're feeling about their relationship. They are constantly preoccupied with where other people are at emotionally. I don't know if you've ever had partners or friends who do this. This is because of their attachment style. So people with anxious attachments are constantly craving closeness to the people around them. And at the same time, they're afraid that other people don't wish to be as close as they wish. So they tend to experience a lot of negative emotion around workplace relationships or their romantic relationships. And they are constantly seeking assurance from others around them that things are okay. And if they are reassured, they're okay. And if you know the person that you're with tends to lean towards this anxious attachment style, or if you do, you can help those people feel more secure and get them closer to that secure attachment by offering them routine reassurance that things are still going great and that everything's fine. Because anxious people are only as anxious as their lowest unmet need, if that makes sense. So they tend to calm down when they are reassured regularly.
Yeah, a little bit of vulnerability here. I definitely skew anxious attachment style at work because I don't know why, I just am that way, you know. And I think we all kind of bounce back and forth. But one thing that helps me, I was trying to think if there's anything that helps me more than this, but I don't think there is. One thing, like you said, that just that little bit of reassurance on occasion. At Awardco, we recognize each other often through our own platform. So it's just like, hey, good job on that, or you did a really good, awesome thing at this, or we saw you do this thing. And those kinds of things, even, and it doesn't have to be in a platform or a software. Anytime I feel like I'm seen and like I'm being heard, that helps me feel so much better. It's like a night and day thing. I'm like, I'm over here, and then when I feel like somebody's like, hey, that was really great, or hey, this problem you're having, I see it too. It's like, whoop, I flip to the other side. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy, you know. And just thinking about how that reassurance helps me not feel as anxious. So
Yeah, and really, if you want to get more productivity out of your anxious attachment style folks, the thing that they are going to need is some reassurance that things are okay. Then their anxiety and their emotional effort, that their bandwidth is temped down that way, and they can be a lot more productive when they're not overly worried about how people are feeling about their performance or about them in general.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I think that's a great point. Bronson. Okay, well, let's roll through and talk about people with an avoidant attachment style. So people who are avoidant present like this. They are going to be fairly private about the details of their feelings, for sure, or their needs, or the opinions that they may have. They're going to hold back, and they're not going to be the first one to share. You may have to press them a lot to share. Although avoidant people do crave and seek connections, they get uncomfortable when there's too much closeness, right? So it's like this delicate little dance. They want and they need the connections. We all do. We're neurobiologically wired to connect. But when things start to get too close, then they're like, whoa. So people with an avoidant attachment style value their freedom and their autonomy over all else. So when anything comes too close and threatens or seems like it may control or influence their freedom, they are going to start to withdraw, is what happens. So avoidant people don't tend to think about relationships in the background of their mind, like we talked about with anxious. They're constantly thinking about that. Avoidant people don't do that. And as a result, the people who are closest to them often accuse them of being emotionally distant from the people in their lives. So if any of you are in a relationship with somebody who leans in towards this avoidant style, you've probably accused them of that before. And when, like I said before, when people get too close, alarm bells start to ring, and they have this fight or flight instinct that will cause them to withdraw. And sometimes they may even do something to sabotage the relationship, right? And that is just a subconscious effort to create the space that they need, to create the autonomy that they need, but they really don't want out. And that can be very confusing, especially for a person with an anxious attachment style. So, in a romantic setting, this has nothing to do with the workplace, but just interesting to note, in a romantic setting, avoidance and anxious tend to be attracted to each other, and it's toxic. So this is something that I spend a lot of time with my clients, trying to decipher if the attachment styles are going to be able to work. So anyway, if you're in a relationship with somebody who has these tendencies, don't smother them with affection, right? Or don't ask for too many personal details. Asking them for these details or insisting that they become close is probably going to trigger that instinct for them to withdraw.
Yeah. Kristen, as we were prepping for this webinar, you mentioned something that I kind of want to ask you about. You said that, we talked about how different attachment styles, certainly one is more preferable than the other, right? The secure attachment is definitely the one that we're all shooting for. But just because we might be a little bit avoidant or anxious doesn't make us any less productive or helpful or things like that, right? Because we need all different styles, at least at some point in time, right?
Well, truly, it takes a village, right? There are pros and cons of all these attachment styles. Even secure attachment style has its cons. So there really isn't one that's better than the other. The key is understanding who you are. And by being aware of who you are, you can just become more aware that maybe some of the drawbacks of that attachment style are influencing your actions and behaviors. And you can consciously say, well, this is just me being avoidant, and there really is no threat to this person really isn't threatening my independence. So I'm just going to move forward. But no, there isn't one that's better than the other, even all the way down to secure. I mean, that is sort of the goal of where we want to be. But yeah, it really does take a village. So if you're an avoidant or an anxious, which by the way, I'm also an anxious, don't worry, not all is lost. It takes everyone to make this world go round.
That's good to know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about secure attachment style. If you're relating to somebody with a secure attachment style, you're going to notice that it's easy for them to be warm in relationships. They don't let others' bad days or bad moods necessarily mean anything about them or what you may have done to influence it. They sort of just weather those ups and downs of other people very well. They tend to be really good at reading emotional cues of other people and the emotional cues that are in the room, which is very useful. So much of our communication is nonverbal, that reading those cues is a big deal. Being able to read those cues is a big deal. One of the drawbacks of being a secure attacher is that people with a secure attachment style often fly under the radar in a group of people. And that's because they're not creating drama, they're not confusing people around them or creating problems. And sometimes they even come across as boring because they are pretty self-sufficient and they aren't creating the emotional chaos that some of these other that people with a profound sense of, avoidance or anxiousness will create. And this is another thing that I work with my clients on. Often they will find a good, healthy person to relate to that is secure, and they find them boring. And we have to really kind of flesh that through because this is who you want to be in a relationship with. This is who you want on your team. So you can help them by noticing and appreciating and awarding Awardco their steadiness and the steady Eddiness that they bring to the table.
Yeah, because that steadiness is kind of what keeps things going, right? You don't necessarily want, I don't know why this metaphor of horses came to me, but you don't want like a really strong spirited one all the time. Certainly, yes, it sometimes, but if you're just trying to get somewhere, you need a consistency and awarding that steadiness and appreciating and noticing people, especially those secure attachment types, will help so much. And so the goal, as we kind of transition here a little bit into talking about the workplace and workplace attachments, the goal of awards in the workplace is to help foster secure attachments. That is really it. When you think about anniversaries that you have with the ones that you care about, or Mother's Day or Father's Day or anything like that, the goal of kind of presenting something like an award, it's not like you award your mom or anything, but like the goal in the workplace, when you present an award, you could award your mom and maybe you should, right? But it's to foster, it's to foster those secure attachments. That's the whole goal. It's not to try and dupe anybody or to make them feel guilty or anything. It's just to help foster these secure attachments. So as we talk more about that in the workplace attachments, let's kind of go into that and how attachment relates to awards. So as we talked about attachment, it's tied to emotion. It is tied securely to how we feel and what we're feeling and how we're thinking. And emotional attachment and awards have these three key points. And when you think about awards, what are the best awards you've ever gotten, right? They're the ones that are genuine. They're the ones that are given sincerely. They're the ones that are real. Thinking about the best awards or the best presents you've ever gotten, they probably had some element of each of these. They were given in a genuine spirit of sincerity. And in the workplace, we can do that too. And it's not like we have to give awards every time somebody does something awesome. I mean, that's great. That's something that it does have a certain, that service awards have a part of a balanced breakfast of recognition, right? If you want to call it that. The Saturday morning cartoon.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, for sure.
Yeah. And so service awards are part of that. And that's why we're going to be talking about that. But service awards that are sincere or real or genuine or any recognition that has much more clout in that respect. So as we talk about awards, what's the psychology behind awards? When we think about if they're sincere and genuine, it means that, that I'm really being seen. I'm worthy of recognition. People know me. I'm valued. And Kristen, you mentioned an example of you and your husband about the skiing lodge, the Stein Eriksen Lodge. You want to share that one?
Oh, yes. So my husband and I, we live in Salt Lake City, just at the foot of the Wasatch Mountains. So we ski quite a bit. And everybody at my husband's office knows that we ski, every week, every weekend. And he's worked at his work for, I don't know, close to 15 years. And so he received some of these service awards, plaques and windbreakers and things like that. But as we were preparing for this, I thought, what would make my husband feel really seen is to receive a night at the Stein Eriksen Lodge, which is a really fancy resort, one that we would never pay to stay at, especially because we live relatively close to the resorts. But it would really make him feel like $1 million, and would also connect that the people he worked with knew him personally and wanted to find something that he would really enjoy. And just the psychology of being seen and noticed for that. I think we don't realize that we just overlook that the people at work are indeed people, and we are created to attach. Don't fight it just because you're at work, and whether you realize it or not, or value it or not, you have a relationship with these work people, and realizing how you can make those people feel seen and make those relationship opportunities better and more meaningful will really improve the employee engagement. So we thought this was like a cute example. And if anybody out there at my husband's work is listening, we would really love a night at the Stein Eriksen Lodge.
Yeah, take this down. Make sure you make a note of it.
Write that down.
And that's true, like tying it to what people value most. And that requires a little bit of effort on your part as you are recognizing and as you're awarding people for their service. So we came up with this cute, cool kind of thing of the AAA formula for recognition, right? And so as we talk about
totally unique too, by the way. AAA has never been done before.
Ever. We're not going to run into any copyright issues with that. But this will help you remember how to give the most powerful recognitions. Tie them into personal relationships and accomplishments of the person. Know their current attachment style. Are they avoidant? Are they anxious? Are they secure? What would they value the most in that respect? And then when you talk about an award, when it is accompanied with an award, are they skiers? Would they like it? Would they like a night at the Stein Eriksen Lodge? Or are they kind of more homebodies? Would they like a subscription to Audible or something like that? It requires some effort. And you can find out, like, if you don't know your employees, you can reach out and ask people that do know them, because somebody knows them and it will help as you try and provide this powerful recognition.
Yeah, promise that somebody that they work with knows the things that they've been working hard on and things that have been challenging for them to accomplish, and reaching out and figuring out what those accomplishments are and seeing them for that just makes such a huge difference. And if there isn't anybody that knows what their accomplishments are or knows them personally, probably time for some team building to go on.
Yep.
We need to have a little fun and some get to know you. Yeah,
you might have bigger problems, right?
Right.
So as we wrap up this talk about recognition and attachment and everything like that, just this part of the webinar, what is love? And you might see that kind of that fun gif there of Night at the Roxbury. Well, it's simple, secure attachments, right? Forming those secure attachments is more important than almost anything at work, because it'll improve that productivity. It'll help people feel seen. It will improve your culture in so many different ways. So,
and we really can use the model of the relationships that we have in our personal lives, and copy some of those things that we do in our personal lives, in our workplace relationships. They'll work just the same, and you'll get so much more out of those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when you put effort in, good things come out, right? So keep love alive at work. And again, we're talking about the platonic love. We don't want to get into any HR trouble at all. This is hr.com. We want to make sure we're above board. But with secure attachments, keep love alive with secure attachments, with reciprocal relationships. When you give, you'll get back too. It's not that you give to get back, but you will, because humans are like that. And then make sure that your people have challenging tasks that challenge them appropriately, but don't overwhelm them, and that they have supportive mentors to help them get through things like that. And so a huge part of what we've been talking about is that recognition. And kind of one of the ways that people recognize the most at work is with the service awards. So as we move into employee recognition and service awards, when we think about service awards, there's so much we could talk about. There's the history of service awards with military awards that have been around for a long time. I mean, in ancient Rome, there was, I think I could totally be remembering this wrong, but the Golden Eagle was a really powerful award that they gave to centurions, things like that. And then also the Olympics, thousands of years ago, we were recognizing people for their athletic prowess. So it's not like, you know, awards and recognition are anything new. We're just putting it into a relatively new context in the workplace. So as we talk about the current state of awards, they're normally given every 5 years. Now your company might, sorry about that. Your company might be a little bit different, but normally it's every 5 years. And who decided that, right? Because if we've looked at the research from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the average tenure for employees now, for millennials especially, but for employees is less than 5 years. And for millennials, it's 2.8 years. That's not a lot of time. They're not going to make it to that 5-year increment, right? So think about that. Think about how you can improve that. And if you recognize them every year, and maybe at their first 6 months, not saying you have to do something that's like, oh my goodness, I need to recognize every time and I need to give them something every time. That's not what we're saying. But if you recognize them maybe every year, every 3 years, you might get to that 5-year increment. You might actually make it, which is something that we really want to shoot for with that retention and loss, you know, and increased engagement.
Right. And if in our personal relationships, when we wait 5 years to celebrate an anniversary, the relationship might not make it that far either.
A little too long. Yeah, for sure. And so when we're talking about recognition, we've gone over the physical awards, the service anniversary awards. There's also a thing called custom care packages. At Awardco, we call them bonus boxes, where you can put together this really cool package of things that you know your employee will like, and then send it to their house, because a lot of us are working remote, right? Like I'm at home right now, and getting a package from my workplace would be awesome. You'd be like, whoa, I'm seen, even though I'm at work. I'm not at work, I'm at the physical place. People see me, you know, and that's a really cool thing we've been doing and been able to find a lot of success with. The other thing that we've been talking about at Awardco specifically, and that it's starting, recognition and service awards are starting to move in this direction, is digital recognition. Because, you know, I think a lot of us understand that the future of work may not necessarily be in an office. So digital recognition is so important with memory books. That's a thing where we can get, it's like a yearbook, but for work. And it's a little bit better because you're not passing around a card to your your desk mate. You're like, hey, sign this. Then it's so-and-so's anniversary here. You can get so much more participation with digital recognition from memory books, and you can put pictures in with these memory books and have this social recognition, and then the person gets it on their service anniversary. And it's a really cool experience. I've seen them going around our office and with our clients, and they improve morale like crazy. One particular example of that is we've had a client who started using this, and their morale, I was speaking with their admin the other day, and she said that the morale has gone through the roof, even though everybody is working from home. And, you know, that pandemic anxiety is a real thing, and this can definitely help with that. So as we wrap this webinar up, we're going to just reiterate the best practices of recognition and about attachment here. So start at the start, because anything is better than nothing you might be doing now. Just try and do something a little bit better. And then drive recognition with values. Tie your values, your company values, into the recognitions you give and your service awards. That will help kind of get in that increased buy-in for people, and will help people kind of see that they're like, oh, I'm contributing to this part of the business, and things like that. Consider service awards every year. Like Kristen, like you said, I mean, if you waited 5 years to recognize the special people in your life outside of work, right?
We might not hang around that long.
I know. Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't know. It would be a challenge. I don't know if I would be hanging around that long if I didn't feel at least seen and recognized. Not that I need like a big something or other, but just for people to be like, hey, thanks. It's been a great year.
Those attachments are worth celebrating. They're worth commemorating.
Yeah, they really are. And that's what we're talking about with service awards. It's just love is attachment, and those attachments are worth celebrating, because People, that's what it's about, is people. People are important. They deserve to be recognized in the way that they appreciate it the most. So consider service awards every year. Think about the personalized awards like we were talking about. What would they value? And think about every person and every milestone, which can be a huge challenge if you have a massive company. Because if you have like thousands of employees, it would be so hard to remember every person and every milestone, which is why the digital component of recognition can be so important. If you can automate it so it just like reminds managers when things are happening and gets buy-in, that can help a lot with increasing morale and the recognition. So important thing to remember, recognition and milestones, celebrations, strengthen the attachment between the employee and employer. That's what we're driving home, right, Kristen?
That's exactly it. Attachment is king.
Mm-hmm. Attachment is king. I like that. Is that trademarkable? Can you trademark?
Yes, trademark.
Okay, great. So remember that.
Copyright.
Yeah. And thank you for attending this webinar with us. We hope that it's been helpful. Kristen, thank you so much for your expertise. Really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, and if you have any questions or anything like that, we'd like to open it up now for a Q&A for any of you that would like to ask Kristen something, myself something, anything like that. Let's see. We do actually have a couple coming through here. So one of them is, what are some of the most common problems your clients encounter when rolling out or improving service awards? That's a good question. We do, like anybody, we encounter problems that our clients have and things like that, but we found that having a consistent experience for recognition and redemption of any awards across different divisions and countries, you just got to have that consistent experience. And another thing is not recognizing enough. That's a big thing that our clients are encountering, is that recognition can be a little bit hard to remind people to do. Like, just remember that, yeah, you've got this thing, recognize your people. It will help quite a lot. And then also something that we found that our clients are encountering is that waiting until year 5, like Kristen and I mentioned, is just too late. You got to recognize them before that. So some solutions for these problems, you can go with a solution provider that is able to handle more of a holistic approach, where you can do something. At Awardco, we call it purchasing power parity. That allows for a consistent value across different currencies and countries, and make sure that everyone, your global workforce, has a consistent feel, and that all their tax and import considerations are eliminated or minimized, and everybody's got that same recognition experience. So those are some ways that you can do that. Also, I have another question here. Is there research on how service awards support a pay for performance culture? That's a question we get a lot at Awardco, actually, is that there is research to suggest that paying for performance doesn't have any more impact than just recognition without pay. Tangible items and cash, they are powerful, and so paying for that performance, it can be very powerful. But we've also found evidence to support that just recognition without an award or without a pay can be equally as powerful. The reason I say that is because we found with our clients that those who use the pay and those who don't have roughly the same experience. And so we don't have any of our own research that we have conducted yet. We are working with some companies where we're gathering that research and things like that, where we can do that. But that's a really good question. Let's see. Are there any other questions that might come along? Yeah, here's kind of an interesting one. There's something we talk about where how incentives work really well along with service awards. Just like that question we just talked about, there is some data out there where we're gathering it. And they work very well with that service award. So something that you can couple it with that we didn't mention earlier is when you give a service award, maybe consider giving the employee a little bit of cash or a little bit of a bonus that they can choose their own award, right? If you couple it with that along with service awards, that can be an even more powerful thing for employees to feel seen and recognized. We've been exploring something at Awardco that we call, it's rewards compensation, bonus compensation. We're exploring something about that where maybe as part and on top of regular compensation, employees are given a bonus or a reward compensation where they're like, hey, every quarter you get this on top of what you already get for your pay, where you can go and choose anything that you want as a reward, as an award or something like that. That has been pretty powerful, and we're exploring that more. So hopefully that will answer a little bit of that question. So there's also, we'd like to wrap this up unless there's any other questions. Kind of wait for that. Doesn't look like there are yet. If there are, I'll be sure to address them. But we do also want to mention that we have an ebook that we'd like to kind of offer for you. It is, it's not gated. Oh, sorry about that. Yep, here it is. We'll put it in the chat for you. You can see it here. It's called Rekindling the Flame and How Service Awards Can Improve Your Employee Engagement. This is something that we would like to offer for you that you can just download and kind of get a better sense of what we've been talking about and things like that. You should see that in the chat there and on my screen. So if there are any other questions, feel free to ask them. If not, thank you so much for coming to this webinar. Kristen, thank you. And Kathy, we'd like to turn it back over to you. I'll stop sharing my screen here.
Thank you. I'm just putting a link in the chat now for everyone. Thank you to our presenters today, and to the audience. If you joined late and want to view this webcast again, the recording and slides will be available soon in the trade show. If you're looking for your webcast credit, those will appear in your hr.com account within 2 business days. Your feedback is important to us. Please take a moment and fill out the exit survey that will appear on your screen. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of the event.